just as you have delivered the previous talks. And to the delegates, you are in the 70th Insight in the program organized by the research wing of Madhya Pradesh Training College. And it's our proud privilege to welcome all of you. It would be a great honor and contribution to the educational cause from your side if you send the poster to your students, colleagues, and well wishers so that they can also benefit from the eye-opening address today. On behalf of Mark Eblos Training College family, research wing, and all the research scholars, and Bindu, Dr. Bindu B. Ma'am, and Dr. K.Y. Bendik sir, and on behalf of the management, it's our proud privilege to welcome Dr. Asha to this program. Now, over to you, research scholars.
Thank you, Joji sir. We missed you a lot, sir, these days. Shall we begin, Joji sir?
Please begin. Please.
Respected Principal Sir, our Research Coordinator, Dr. Bindu Ma'am, our invited guest of the day, Dr. Asha A.K. Ma'am, dear Jojo Sir, and dear all participants, good evening. Welcome to our 70th Insight In-Depth webinar series. To start with, let us evoke the muses for the smooth, fertile conduction of the webinar. Sanla Ma'am, please. Thank you, Sanila Ma'am. To welcome our participants and resource person, I'd like to call upon Ms. Akanshka Prajapati onto the line. Akansha Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Am I audible, Tara?
Yes.
Thank you. A very warm good evening to one and all present here. I extend my gratitude and a warm welcome to the 70th Insight In-Depth Invited Talk series organized by the research wing of Martha Training College, Nalanchira, one of the premier teacher training institutes in Kerala since 1956. It's my tremendous honor to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. K.Y. Bendik sir, recipient of Young Scientist Award, Kerala. Behind every academic excellence of this institution, we see his fingerprints. I welcome you, sir, to this gathering. Next, I would like to extend my warm welcome to our resource person for today's talk, Dr. Asha A.K. Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Asha Bai College of Education, SNTT University, Mumbai. Ma'am would be enriching all of us with the reflection of her views on the topic, Explore the Magic of Letters that could remold your life. We are indeed really grateful to have you here, ma'am, On behalf of everyone present here, I extend my warm welcome to you. Next, I would like to welcome our research coordinator, Dr. Bindu B. Ma'am. She's the most prominent figure in our college activities and source of our motivation and support. I welcome you, ma'am. I would also like to welcome our previous research coordinator, Dr. Joju John, sir. I extend a warm welcome to you, sir, as well. Next, I would like to welcome our research guides, professors, assistant professors, teachers, teacher educators, research scholars, MD students from other institutions, and all dear participants. Finally, I'm pleased to extend my cordial welcome to my fellow researchers behind this academic exercise. Once again, I welcome you all to this virtual gathering. Thank you.
Thank you, Akansha, for the wonderful welcome address. The topic to be dwelt upon today is Explore the Magic of Letters That Could Remold Your Life by Dr. Asha A.K., Assistant Professor, Asha by College of Education, SNDT, Mumbai. Let us know our today's resource person. I would like to call Vincy ma'am onto the line. Vincy ma'am, please.
Thank you, Tara ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, honorable dignitaries and dear participants. It's my tremendous pleasure to introduce the guest of honor for the 70th Insight In-Depth Invited Talk Series, Dr. Asha A.K. ma'am, who will be presenting her thoughts on the topic, Explore the Magic of Letters That Could Remold Your Life. Ma'am is currently working as Assistant Professor in Asha Bai College of Education, Mumbai, and has experience in teaching B.Ed, M.Ed, BBA, MBBA, MBA, and engineering students. And she is dealing with subjects like business communication, public relation, effective communication, etc. Ma'am has pursued various degrees and courses from reputed educational institutions like MA in English, Masters in Education, PhD in Education, CELTA from Cambridge University, IELTS Master Trainer from British Council. Ma'am has her hand on as life skill trainer as well as a communicative English trainer. She has conducted various communicative English sessions for teachers and students. To add on her laurels, ma'am was associated with various media channels like Doordarshan and Surya TV as an anchor and newsreader. Ma'am has anchored various public programs and seminars, also conducted intercollegiate quiz programs for B.Ed students of the University of Kerala and University of Mumbai. Ma'am is an active resource person of Faculty Development Program. We are honored that Ma'am has accepted our invitation as a resource person for today's program, and I'm expecting today's session will be an astounding one. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vincy ma'am. A routine talk. Dear participants, please mute your audio and video for the smooth, uninterrupted conduction of the session. Do follow the instructions by the resource person and feel free to raise your queries in the chat box. You can also make it in person during the deliberation session. Once again, we heartily appreciate your presence here today. Thank you. Without much waffling, let me hand over the cue to our today's speaker, Dr. Asha A.K. Ma'am, please. Ma'am, your mic is mute.
Sorry, let me present it once again.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, Francis Bacon has said everyone knows this very well. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. കുഞ്ഞുണ്ണി മാഷ് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളത് എന്താണ്? വായിച്ചാൽ വളരും, വായിച്ചില്ലേലും വളരും, വായിച്ചാൽ വിളയും, വായിച്ചില്ലെങ്കിൽ വളയും. Books really make our world. And it is one of the cheapest and the easiest means to get information, to get knowledge. Why? Because reading is mostly not an expensive process. With the advent of technology, now we are able to read each and every book, or a majority or a vast majority of books which are available across the world, even by sitting in our homes. And definitely good reading skills can improve our language skills. And when you read aloud, or when you listen to people reading aloud, it helps us to improve what? Our pronunciation skills. So if you want to learn English, if you want to improve your English language, if you want to make sure that your communication should be excellent, if you want to gain confidence in communication, we should read, because the best readers often get the best grades, they get the best jobs, and they make the best use of the opportunities available. So normally what do we read? We should definitely read something which interests us. That is very, very important. So let's read something. Let's read a small story. Is there anyone who doesn't like to read a story? I don't think so. Yeah. Who can read it for me? I'm having some throat pain. I hope my voice is reaching you properly. Yeah. Who can read it for me? This is a small story from, I will not say it now. Yeah, come on.
Shall I read it? Okay.
Yes.
Let's read a story. In a lake, there were 3 fish who were great friends. The first fish was very smart. The second one knew how to find his way out of trouble. And the third was adamant and hated changes. The first fish overheard a fisherman's conversation about coming back the next day and fishing in the lake. Sensing danger, he cautioned his friends to move out of the lake. The second fish said, I will stay here and find a way out if I'm caught. The third fish said, I do not want to move out. I will remain here. And if I have to get caught, I will. The first fish moved out. The next day, the fisherman arrived and caught the other 2 fish. The second one cleverly escaped by pretending to be dead. The third fish did nothing and got caught and died.
Thank you so much. Okay, can you tell me what is the moral of the story? This is from Panchatantra Stories. Yeah. What is the moral of the story? Panchatantra Stories are famous with their morals. What's the moral? Anyone? You can type in the chat box as well. Yes. What moral does the story give us? You have read something, right?
Be ready to change.
Yes, of course, Jojo Sai, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, be ready to change, be open to change and adapt accordingly. And immediately when you sense danger, you have to take appropriate action. Okay, who overheard the fisherman's conversation?
First fish.
Yes, and what was the second fish's reply? Okay, I'll stay here and find their way out if I'm caught. That was the second fish.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
And what happened to the third fish? What happened to the third fish?
The third fish was caught and it dead.
Okay, it died. Can anyone give me a title for the story? Can anyone suggest a title for the story? Yes? Okay, the title in Panchata. Yeah, come on.
Trust yourself, be the change. Be
Okay,
the
very good.
thinking agent.
Yeah, title is far better when compared to the original title in the Panchatantra stories. The original title is Three Fishes. Okay, very good. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what did we learn from this story? From the whole set of reading process. We comprehended the passage, right? We comprehended the gist of the passage or the main idea. We understood the moral. We were able to give an analytical story. We were able to give an analysis of what has happened. Based on our thinking skills and the comprehension, we analyzed it and we could give a moral. I think I am hearing some disturbances. Yeah. So, what are the amazing benefits of reading books? Why should we read books? What do we get when we read? It helps us definitely to strengthen our writing skills. It improves our memory. It improves our focus. It enhances our imagination. Our creativity, our innovativeness is developed. It's boosted when we read. And definitely, can someone mute yourself? I could hear a lot of disturbance.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Jojo sir. Jojo sir, kindly mute your audio, sir. Jojo sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, ma'am.
It's okay. It increases our vocabulary. We get a rich fund of words. The more we read, the more our resources of vocabulary is increased, or our treasury of vocabulary is expanded, we can say. It expands definitely our knowledge, our outlook, and as far as our brain is concerned, it stimulates our brain and boosts our mood. It deepens our empathy. We develop an affective domain. We develop emotions. We develop empathy towards things. And once we finish reading something, and it makes us feel relaxed. If you are stressed, if you are tired, if you're tense, you can go and read something sweet. You can go and read a sweet little story, or read an article which you prefer to read. Something of your taste. And one important thing is, if you want to sleep well at night, you can read something and you sleep. But if you look at your mobile, you can't sleep. So that is an added advantage of reading. Okay, now, I've told you, when we read, it enhances our vocabulary and knowledge. We get a lot of styles of language, usages of language. We get to know lots of idioms, phrases, etc. Can anyone tell me some idioms using the word books? Because we are focusing on books. Idioms or phrases using books. Can anyone tell me? You can write in the chat box as well. Let's have a game. Yes. Do you remember any idiom or phrase which starts with a book, the word book? Yes. What do you mean by a closed book? What do you mean by the phrase a closed book? Yes.
A room without
Yeah.
book is a body without soul.
Oh, that's a very good usage. A room without book is a body without soul. Excellent. Yeah. And an open book. Yeah. Open book. What do you mean by an open book? He's a bookworm. We say for a person who is always into studies and doesn't look into anything else. Book self. And what do you mean by a closed book, and what do you mean by an open book? A closed book is a chapter which is finished, or a matter which is settled. And what's an open book? We used to
Being
say,
frank.
yeah, being frank. She is an open book. They don't keep any secrets. We say that. And read someone like a book. What do you mean by read someone like a book? Teachers should read students like a book certain times to understand
the person.
yeah,
Understand
what
the person
student is
very well.
thinking or feeling. Excellent. The
All-
oldest, yeah, don't judge the book by its cover. Excellent. What do you mean by that? Don't give face value to things. Yeah. Then, I'm in someone's good books. I believe I'm in the good books of Martyophilus Training College. And students should never be in the bad books of teacher. What do you mean by that? Be in good books or bad books means someone is pleased with you or someone is annoyed with you. Yeah. Then By the book. By the book.
According
One
to
who
the book,
strictly follows the rules.
Yeah, we strictly follow the rules. Yeah. Take a leaf out of someone's book. Take a leaf out of someone's book.
To copy someone.
Of course, to copy someone because they are successful at doing something. Yes, excellent. The oldest trick in the book. What do you mean by that? It's a dishonest method of doing something that you know about because it has been used many times before. People are using it. It's a dirty method. It's not good. And cook the books. What do you mean by cook the books? Cook the books. To change accounts or figures dishonestly, normally to make money. For example, she has been cooking the books for years, but finally she was caught last year. And these usages are provided in the Macmillan dictionary. If you wish to, you can have a look. Okay. Now, let's see the various types of reading. We all read, but we read in any of these categories. Our reading falls into any of these categories. Let's see them one by one. What do you mean by reading aloud? We read aloud. And what do you mean by silent reading? Silent reading is not whispering, it's not murmuring, but it is reading with our lips closed, right? So when you have to read, normally we do reading aloud in the classrooms, but majority of the reading happens in silent reading. And what's skimming and what's scanning? What's the difference between skimming and scanning? Can anyone tell me? You can also type in the chat box. Yeah, you can think of the term scanning and tell me. Normally,
scanning is reading a particular, just like scanning of a body, just reading a particular part.
Yes.
Looking for the index and reading that particular part.
Yeah.
And skimming is getting the summary or the gist.
Yeah. Skimming gives us the summary. It saves us a lot of time because we can grasp the main idea of it. We normally do skim newspapers and magazines. Suppose if we are finding an interesting information, we want to go deeper into it. What do? We scan at that particular time. Otherwise, we generally skim. And when if we train ourselves, we can reach a speed count of even 700 words per minute. If we can keep on skimming things like that, if we practice, because it saves a lot of time and it's easier to recall what you're about to read. For example, you're going to read a research material for your research purpose. What do? You just take the book, quickly go through the index page, read the subheadings, first paragraph of every section, or something which is in bold or italics. Or if there is a chapter summary, you read all those things, you skim through it, and you are having an overview of a chapter which you are going to read. Now you understood where you have to scan. You can go on to use scanning and find out the specific important ideas. Normally we do scan when we have to find out, when we find out a particular research material which we are going to use in our research, right? Or maybe in your review of later literature. Yeah, through each sentences or words, that is scanning. Yeah, excellent. Now, what do you mean by rapid reading or supplement? Let's go to intensive and extensive reading. What do you mean by intensive reading and extensive reading? Where do intensive reading normally happens? Again, in our classrooms. In our classrooms, intensive reading happens. It is beneficial to language learners because we are reading each and everything. We are understanding the meaning of the vocabulary. By deducing the meaning of the words in the context. Then we are reading the grammar portions. We are understanding the exercises. We are comprehending the passage. We are answering each and every activity is given. So we are having an intensive reading. And extensive reading is something which is involved for pleasure. Normally, it's an element of enjoyment. So unless it is given as a part of their curriculum, students are not going to read extensive. You know that. And what is rapid reading or supplementary reading? It's the same thing. We are reading something extra, maybe for some particular information or for entertainment or for pleasure. Then, what do you mean by cognitive reading and intellectual reading? What is cognitive reading and intellectual reading? We read it for research purpose. What is that? What is that? It is knowledge acquisition. That is cognitive and intellectual reading. And what do you mean by referential reading or factual reading? Referential reading means we get extra information, we get additional information. We use the books for references. And what is factual reading? We are reading something to understand some instructions or facts. That is factual reading. When you are reading the manual of operating a particular machine, that becomes a factual reading. And affective reading or emotional reading, what is that? It's a type of reading that is done for appreciation or pleasure. That is affective reading or emotional reading. Normally, we do read novels and stories in this type. And what's literal reading? We are reading with a purpose to understand what's written in the text. That is literal purpose of it. And interpretative reading, read between the lines. We read and we interpret in our own terms. And what's critical reading? We do reading to judge a piece of work according to our experiences, our ideas, our principles, etc. We read something and we have our own criticism based on it. And the last one is creative reading. We are developing or generating ideas after reading a text. We read a textbook and we develop ideas based on it. We are not copying ideas from it, but we generate ideas based on it. So these are some of the types of readings. But when we read, we face a lot of hurdles. What are the different hurdles we face? The first one is decoding. For example, what is decoding? Connecting individual sounds to letters or letters to words. Grasping the connection between a group of letters and the sounds. That is the phonemic awareness. That is decoding. Can you understand a word properly? Then the second one is vocabulary. Do you understand a word from the context? Are you able to understand it? That is important. And before reading something, is the teacher equipping a child with certain vocabulary which he or she needs in the process of reading? And the cohesion. What do you mean by cohesion? Understanding how sentences are built, how they're connected with ideas within and between sentences. And what's our previous knowledge? Before reading something, we have some set of knowledge or the background knowledge about the world when we read, and we apply our reasoning here. Sometimes we even read between the lines. For example, a child is reading a story about a poor family in the 1930s, which means in the 1930s, the Great Depression has happened. And having knowledge about the Great Depression can definitely provide an insight into what's happening in the story. So this background knowledge of Great Depression can be utilized by the child to make inferences and draw conclusion on the story which the child is reading. So how do we build this previous knowledge? We build this previous knowledge again through reading. We build this previous knowledge through conversations, by watching movies, by watching television shows, or even by observing or experiencing art forms, or even through our personal life experiences or hands-on activities. We are aware of things. I heard a question how intellectual and referential differs. The intellectual and referential differs. The difference is intellectual means it is gaining knowledge. Cognitive and intellectual, we are acquiring knowledge. And referential is we are getting extra information. There is no critical difference between both, but we are experiencing things, or we are experiencing knowledge in the first level and we are getting extra knowledge in the referential reading. I hope I'm clear with you. Shall I proceed? Now,
Yes, sir.
fluency. Yeah. What is fluency? Fluency is an essential requisite of reading. Fluency means a rate at which we can read and understand text. That is chunk of reading. Can you read together? When you are reading the first sentence or the first four words of a sentence, are you able to identify the next words? Are you able to read it properly and read coherently? That shows our fluency. Can we quote them together? Can you read quickly without making errors? Even if a piece of material is given in front of you which you haven't read before, can you read it without making mistakes? That shows our fluency. So if you have to gain the habit of developing fluency in reading, you have to read more. That's the only way. Now, attention and memory. Another thing. For example, are you able to hold the information when we read? Whatever we have just read before, whether our memory help us to hold on to that information and use it to gain meaning and build information from what we are going to read further. Are we able to self-monitor ourselves? That is, are we able to recognize that when we don't understand something, we didn't understand something while we are reading, what did we do? We stopped. We went back. We reread it and we cleared our confusion. So can we monitor ourselves like this? This is included in our attention and memory part. Okay, so these are some of the hurdles which we face while we are reading text. So how can we improve it? The step is we start reading. We start reading things which we are interested in. We start reading at a level which we find it easier to begin with. Thus, we improve our levels of reading. Let's see the various levels of reading. According to Mortimer and Charles Van Doren, there are 4 levels of reading basically. The first level of reading, that is level 1, is elementary reading. It's also called as basic reading or initial reading. What is that? It's a child's first encounter with reading. The child is recognizing individual words. The child deals with what does the sentence say. That is, the cat sits on the hat. Literal meaning. The child doesn't think whether the cat has sit on the hat while the hat was on the top of the head of a man. No. The cat sits on the cat. That's a literal meaning the child takes. And the second level is inspectional reading. That is skimming systematically with giving special emphasis on time. For example, a student is allowed a set time to complete an assigned amount of reading. We are given a paragraph to read and answer the questions. The time given is 5 minutes. That is inspectional reading. Within that short phrase of time, are you able to get most out of it? Or are you able to get the maximum idea? Again, it's dealing with the surface of the book. That is a paraphrase of the book. And the third level of reading is analytical reading. What do you mean by analytical reading? It becomes more complex and more systematic. It's thorough reading. It's complete reading. It's systematic reading, which we do as researchers and as teachers. The best reading we can do, that is analytical reading. It is done for the sake of understanding something. Inspectional reading is best in a limited time, whereas analytical reading is the best given in an unlimited time. The time is unlimited. An analytical reader must ask questions on what he or she is reading. We should ask questions and find answers to us. We should know the summary. We should know the in-depth details of it. That is analytical reading. And the last level or the highest level is the fourth level called the syntopical reading or comparative reading. It's the most active and effortful kind of reading. It's very complex and of course systematic as well because it makes heavy demands on the reader. We read many books. We have to compare them. We compare those books, we contrast those books, and now we're able to construct an analysis of the subject based on what we have read, but our analysis is not there in any one of the books. That is analytical, syntopical reading. We are reading a lot of books. For example, when you have to prepare a conceptual paper, to present somewhere. Normally or even we are preparing a paper on an article which is familiar to everyone, but your paper should stand out. What do? We have to do the syntopical reading. We have to read a lot what is written there, here and there. But we are analyzing everything, we are comparing them, contrasting everything, and finally we are preparing an analysis of that subject. That ideas may not be there in the books that you have read, but you have analyzed it, you have found it. That is analytical reading. Now, how do we read? We have to read. How do we start? I have already said this first. Read at a slightly lower level than what you understand, so that you don't find reading as a very boring, tough, and undigestible process. No, you're interested to read. Second thing, can we make reading a ritual? How? We can choose a time and a place to read every day or every week. So every week or every time you're reading, you're focusing on one book, and I'm keeping some time set with me. Maybe 10 minutes per day, or maybe 1 hour per week, whatever be according to my convenience. I'm fixing a time and place to read every day. And can I make sure that I commit to this reading time as if it's a job? This is my reading time. This is there in my schedule. Can we make it as a ritual? And the third one is read what interests us. Are you a cooking expert? Do you have culinary expertise? So go and read books on cookery. Go and read books on cookery, which shows different experiences, different experiments, something that interests us. And understand what you will be tested on. For example, you are reading for a particular purpose. You're reading to find out research materials. Your reading style is different. You are reading for attending a particular test. Your reading style is different. The specific format, what you have to read, based on it, you have to read and pick the knowledge. And can we find free reading materials? Of course, it's easily available. I need not mention it to you. And can we visualize what you're reading? I'll make you read a piece of work later, and let's see whether you can visualize. While we are reading something, can you imagine that you're reading a movie or a video rather than you're reading a book? Just try it once again and see how it is. It's a different world. And listen and read. If you are a person who doesn't have time to sit and read, can you listen and read? Even while you're traveling, you can hear it and read, or you can hear it and read simultaneously, so that the pronunciation, the usages, the chunking, everything will be correct. Can you follow it properly? Can you adjust yourself with that pace of reading? You can find out. Are you able to read with them together? Or you can listen to it once and you can read later. Try any of these techniques which are okay for you, and relate what you read to your own life. How does this reading apply to you? When you read a story, have you heard of the story of O. Henry, The Last Leaf? It's a beautiful short story which shows the true example of empathy. Can anyone tell me the story? Do you remember? It's a story of artists. So one artist girl who has got big plans to be an artist, she has fallen down with pneumonia, and it's a winter time, and from her room she's seeing leaves falling down from a tree, and she's saying that when the last leaf from this tree is going to fall, I'm also going to die. She's in depression, she has lost her hopes. But on that particular night, another artist who lived in the same building, he has painted a picture of it there. And when she woke up the next morning, she's again seeing the leaves. The leaves hasn't fallen down. So she is hopeful. It hasn't fallen down. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Now her hopes have increased. She is brought back to life with that hope. It was empathy. It was a beautiful story. So after reading it, can you relate it to something? A moment where you have helped someone, or someone has helped you, or you have seen such an example or experience in your life? How does it apply to you? Can we learn something from it? Can we apply something in somewhere else? Are you able to think about the author or journalist? If you were the author, will you write like this? Can you use this phrase like this? If you didn't like this phrase, which phrase am I going to use instead? Oh, if you're having a problem with reading, especially reading from the books through internet or from our mobiles, the first and foremost thing we need to do is not any of these, but make sure that our eyesight is proper. If you haven't checked your eyesight in the last few years, make an appointment and do it as quickly as possible, because having clarity in reading, a reading should not give us headache. Even that's important. It's not just like reading a book, because reading from gadgets can create lots of eye problems as well. So taking care of your health while reading is equally important. Now, when reading, we always are not following the same pace. We increase our pace and we decrease our pace. When should we increase our pace? When we find simple materials with a few ideas which are new to us, what we can do? We can move rapidly over the familiar ones. And when we see unnecessary examples and illustrations which are included to clarify the ideas, do you need them? If you don't, move over them rapidly. There are some detailed explanation and elaboration which you do not need. You only need the crux of the matter. Read quickly. And there are some broad generalized ideas which you can quickly grasp. So scanning or skimming, skip it, which is not useful for you. Whether the author may have some particular information which he feels is relevant, but for you it is not relevant. So we can keep our reading track flexible and our shift gears from selection to selection. We can skip materials which we don't need and we can focus on them when we need it. Yeah. Now, when do we decrease our speed? Be like a tortoise or a snail. An unfamiliar word which is not made clear by the sentence. Majority of the sentences we can identify the meaning while we read them from the context itself. But there are certain certain words which we are not able to identify or understand from the context. Then what do? We have to understand it from the way it is used. We have to read it again, then continue reading and return to it later, refer dictionary, find out its meaning and read it again and understand if you feel that that portion is significant for you. Otherwise, we can skip it. Now, long and uninvolved sentence and paragraph structure. You have to untangle the mess. Otherwise, you won't get an accurate idea of what the passage says. And unfamiliar or abstract ideas. Then what we have to do? We have to look for applications or examples which give meaning to that. We have to ensure that that idea gives sense to us. Never give up until we understand if it is necessary for you, because it will be much easier the next time. If we need to seek help from someone who knows it better. That is important. And the material on which you want detailed retention, definitely. The detailed technical material, complicated directions, abstract principles, again, you have to focus on them. And the key to memory is organization and recitation. Here it is not our speed that matters, but we have to organize the ideas in our memory. Or we have to note down things. Okay, it's like shifting our gears. Low gear when it is going steep, shift into high gear when it is smooth. So adjust your rate of reading as and when you come across hurdles or as and when the path is easy, smooth and clear for you. Now, we need to comprehend things. How? KWL. What do you mean by KWL? Can anyone give me an idea? What is KWL? Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Yeah, what is KWL?
College.
Yeah. First is knowledge, of course. Yeah. Knowledge. Yes. The first is K is what you know about the topic. The second is what you want to know about the topic. And L is what you have learned. So you have to determine this and skip. If you don't understand a word or section when you're reading, if you prefer, you can keep reading ahead, come back to this section again, and try to figure out the meaning. Then, as I've already said, use a dictionary if it is necessary. You look for headings, subtitles, and keywords when we read. We can note down. And we read out aloud. When children start reading, they read out aloud. We can also read out aloud. We can get comfortable hearing our own English voice. We can get comfortable hearing our own English pronunciation. Why many people are not confident when they are asked to give a speech in English in front of a class, not a class, in front of a public. Because in class, we are dealing with students, we may do it confidently. But when you are asked to give a speech in front of your college, in front of your school, not just your class students, many of us are not confident. Why? Because we are not used to hearing our own sounds, our own pronunciation in English, and are not confident in it. So once you start reading out aloud, you understand where your pronunciation stands, where your chunking stands, where your modulation stands. You can listen to your sound, you can correct yourself, and you can become comfortable with it, and you will be confident with it at a later stage, for sure. Now, can we create timelines or charts? Recognize what you read in a different format. That is, we are creating a chart for us for reading. Can we do that? Oh, can we rewrite in a different tense? One more thing in that, in creating timelines or charts, there are two things. First thing is we can create a time for you to read particularly, or can you reorganize what you have read in a different format? Which means you should comprehend it completely. Can you rewrite it in a different tense? Was it in present tense? Can you make it into past tense? Or can you make it into future tense? You're learning the usages correctly. And can you rewrite it in a different format? It's totally if it's an article, sorry, if it's an article, can you write it as a letter form? If it's a story, can you write it as a narration? Can you do that? Then illustrate. If you think you're a visual learner, can you sketch some images? Can you draw some pictures? Or can you make a mental map of what you have read? Oh, can you write the questions as you read? Can you think about some questions which you might find on a test or a quiz? Can you prepare questions as and when you read? When you read, there are lots of multiple choice questions which are coming up. Can you make those questions? Can you answer them? Can you quiz a friend based on it? Or can you come back and answer those questions? Can you try any of these? Now, can we summarize or retell what we have read? Can we write a blog on it? Or can we even make a video of what we have read? Or can we start a conversation on this topic with anyone in any groups or in any occasions? Can you share what you have read with others? Now, sorry, can you know the prefixes and suffixes? The knowing prefixes and suffixes will definitely increase our word recognition. By reading words, we come across a lots of prefixes and suffixes. Our knowledge increases our vocabulary as well. Can we keep a vocabulary journal? Can we make sure that we note down the difficult words in that vocabulary dictionary or a vocabulary diary, or even in our laptop or in our phone? Can we keep a record of words, new words, at least one word a day? Can we have a vocabulary partner, a friend whom you can trust, with whom you share your words and with she shares your words, her words with you? And you can have a quiz in between. You can conduct a test so that you know that you have learned these words. You can have revision together. Can you make sentences using these words? Can you ensure that in your conversations you will use those words which you have learned? Oh, while you are reading, if you feel that you would like to mark it with a ruler, or if you're if you if you want to mark it with a pencil, do you have that habit? If it is your book, you can do that. But if it's someone else's book, never attempt to do it. And do you feel that you need your finger or your ruler to read? Then it's something which is affecting your pattern of reading or your vision. And when you are reading in the computer or in the mobile phone, this, if the size is not usable, suitable for us, can we adjust it? If so, do it. Yes, I think someone is to tell me something. Okay. Yeah. How can we inculcate reading habits in the kids? The simple techniques which we can practice. Making them visit the school library, providing good books and comfortable atmosphere to them. Then forming a class library under the supervision of the teacher. There should be enough copies and a variety of books which suit the tastes of
Ma'am,
students.
excuse me, ma'am. Pavin, please mute your audio. Pavin, please mute your audio. Sorry, ma'am.
It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah. So how do we form a class library? We can ask students to bring books from their homes, and it's not that they are donating. Everyone is not willing to donate books to the class library, even if they are going to read it. So we can ask students to bring books to the class and keep it here for a particular period of time. They will get a chance to read their friends' books, as well as they can exchange their books. Maybe for a month, they are bringing books from their home and keeping it over here, taking it back after a month when everyone has finished reading those books, and they can bring a separate set of books. So parents will not be having a problem that you are donating books to the library if you are not willing to do that. We can organize definitely reading programs. There are reading clubs in schools. Why can't we organize programs? Not just once in a year, on a regular basis. And can we ask an interesting question related to the text of a book to the student and makes them find out the answer from the text? Can we narrate the story to the class in an interesting way? But we can make sure that the story is not finished. Once I remember in a family get together, there were lots of small cousins, or rather I should say my cousins' children. So what I did was, to entertain them, I told them the story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Roald Dahl's famous book. It has been a movie as well. So I told them the story, and I told them that this has been converted into a movie as well. I told only a portion of the story to them, not the complete story. And when I came back to Mumbai, I got endless calls from my cousins asking from where I'll get this book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The kids are demanding that they need to read the books. So that is the power of stories. Can you narrate some stories to the class in such a way that they are motivated to read it? Can you read a good passage from a book? You can read it, or you can even make students come and read passages from the books. If you're a science teacher, you can select any text related to science, any stories related to scientists, any stories related to any experiments. We can conduct, of course, reading competition in the class and assess the reading activity. By doing all those things, unless we assess the reading activity and maintaining a record of books they have read, and whether they have prepared a summary of it, what activities have they undergone, we cannot indicate whether they have enjoyed it or not. So that is important. And while we are reading, I told you initially, we are going to get a rich treasury of words. So now let's see how words are going to help us. No words are as helpful while reading as the prepositions and conjunctions, right? And there are lots of words and phrases which will almost immediately make us a better reader. Let's see them. Okay, they are called Qualifying words. What do you mean by qualifying words? Can anyone tell me qualifying words? What do you mean by qualifying words? Yes. I'll give you one or two examples. You should give me the rest of the examples. Okay. If, although, unless. These are qualifying words. Or qualifying the number, not many, a small number, few, often. These are qualifying words. Aren't we using these? Aren't we using these words while we are speaking or reading or writing? Yeah, very good. Yeah. Now, what are concession words? What are concession words? What are concession words? Which means, okay, we agree on this much. Accepting the data, granted that, of course, while, whilst, nevertheless, however, even so, all the same, much as. These are concession words. What do you mean by emphasizing words? These words are telling us, wake up and take notice. Now, nobody was listening. Come on, wake up. What's the usage? Wake up and smell the coffee. Okay. Yeah. What are emphasizing words? Above all, more important, indeed, absolute, even very is a qualifying word. Total is a qualifying word. Okay. What do you mean by order words? Order words. Yeah, come on. Can I get the answer in the chat box? Have even shown you the actions? Yes. Nobody is writing. Order words. Yeah, excellent, Tara. First, second, then once. Yeah, time order. Once, then next, finally, later, last, lastly. Very good. These are order words. And what do you mean by time words? Time words. Time words. Afterwards, meanwhile, now, before. Yeah, time words. Can I get more time words? Recently, excellent. Recently, presently, many times. Yes. After a while, from this point, never, last month, consequently, yesterday, previously, ultimately, often, later, etc. These are time words. Now, what do you mean by additive words? What are additive words? We are adding something. We are adding something. Try, think. Think. That is also, further, moreover, besides, to, TOO, in addition, namely, specifically, more precisely, all these are time words. Now, sorry, additive words. Now, equivalent words. What do you mean by equivalent words? Equivalent words. Equal, identical, proportionate, likewise, comparable, equally important, as well as, at the same time, corresponding, similarly, comparable. All these are called equivalent words. Then amplification words. Amplifying your ideas. What do you mean by amplification words? Specifically, for instance, as, such as, like. These are equivalent amplification words. For example, I'll just give you an example of describing a town. Jauntious seaside resorts. The jauntiest is a amplification word over here. Okay, then what are alternative words? What are alternative words? Neither nor, either or, otherwise, the other alternative, or on the other hand, etc. And what are repetitive words? Again, in other words, to repeat time after time, that is a usage, repetition. The figure of speech, heart to heart, or the phrase, boys will be boys, hand in hand, hour to hour, sorry, not sorry, over and over. These are repetitive words. And what are contrast and change words? But, on the contrary, on the other hand, though, despite, still, instead of, however, rather than, regardless, even though, in spite of. What do you mean by summarizing words? We are winding up. For these reasons, in brief, let me say these words are important. In conclusion, to sum up, in the end, concisely, these words should be mastered by us. The more we read, we come across such words and usages which we can use. Now, we have to assess our reading skills. For example, if you're taking a standardized English test or attending any English language classes, your reading skills will be tested. So there are certain things which we will be asked to do when you are participating in a reading test or an assignment. One, finding the gist or the main idea, which means write or say one sentence that explains what you have read. Or second, summarize. Describe a few of the main points that are presented in the passage given. Locate details. Find specific information that is provided in the text. Understand inferences. Make assumptions based on the information you are given in a text. Maybe you are asked to make an inference about the author as well. Make predictions. Guess what a reading will be about and guess what will happen next. Identify the genre and style. Name the type of the category of writing that you have read. Sort the information in a systematic form, in a chart form, or creating a map or a chronological timeline. Match the information, match the dialogue to a character, likewise, or paraphrase. Rewrite the text in your own words. Identify the parts of speech given in a particular sentence or a paragraph, comparing and contrasting things, identifying the keywords, matching paragraphs to headings, write an opinion about certain elements, what you have read, write comprehension questions, answers for that, and decide whether something is true or false. These are something, it is not even mentioned in the text. So these are some of the items by which you will be assessed when you attend a reading test. Your score is important because you have to see the time and read it in accordance with it and answer the questions. And if you have to read via internet, there are endless digital resources. I'm not going to mention, you know it better than me. Okay, and there are lots of types of reading categories. Fiction, read what interests you. For example, classics. Can you give me an example for a classic? Can anyone give me an example for a classic? Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. A crime and mystery? Crime and mystery novel. Any example? Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. And any fantasy story? Any fantasy? Yes. The Vampire Diaries. Any horror stories? The Haunting of the Hill House. Any literary fiction? The Alchemist. Any popular fiction? Me Before You. Any science fiction? The Martian, The Hunger Games. Any romance? Sorry, popular fiction was Harry Potter. The romance was Me Before You. And Midnight Children, that's also a popular fiction. Any short stories, do you remember? Any short stories? What is R.K. Narayan's stories called? Yeah, of course, Malgudi Days. Very good. And the House of Strange Stories from Ruskin Bone. Yeah. Pardon? I couldn't hear. Okay. The last sleeve. Okay. Yeah. And the women's fiction. The Duke and I from Bridgerton. Young adult fiction. The Hate You Give. Okay. Now let's see non-fiction. Books on autobiographical books. Can you tell me any autobiographical books? Any autobiographical books you remember? Whose book is Long Walk to Freedom? Long Walk to Freedom?
Nelson Mandela.
Yes. Yeah. The Race of My Life? The Flying Sing. Milka Singh. Okay. And Arts and Crafts, The Sari by Linda Linton. I'm just giving one example. That's it. Any biographies? Can you remember?
Malala. In the Satyaneshna Parishanangal.
That is Gandhiji's autobiography. The story of my experiments with truth. That's Gandhiji's autobiography, not biography. And biography, The Teacher I Never Met. This is an autobiography by biography by Ishan Sharma on Kalam. But Kalam's autobiography is Wings of Fire. Yeah. And cooking. Do you remember any books on cooking? Of course, there are books in front of you. Indian Superfoods by Rujita Divekar, a celebrity specialist, nutritionist. Khana Khazana by Sanjeev Kapoor. Gardening. Secrets of Terrace Gardening. History. Something which all of us might have read or heard. History. Which is, who wrote The Discovery of India?
Journal.
Yes. And the Augmentative Indian from a Nobel Prize winner in India. Amartya Sen. Okay. And how to learn something books. Books which deals with how to learn, or self-help books. How to learn means things no one else can teach us. Toppers, study hacks, memoirs. When breath becomes air, if possible, read that book by Dr. Paul Kalanidhi. And Science, A Brief History of Time. Who wrote it? The man in the wheelchair who recently passed away. Stephen Hawkins. Yeah. And The Origin of Species?
Darwin.
Yeah, of course. The answer is correct. And the self-help books or motivational books. How to win friends and influence people. Atomic Habits. Yeah. Pardon? Helen Keller. Yes. Excellent. Technology. Tesla. The Inevitable. Travel. Sancharams by Santosh George Kolangara. They are excellent travel books. Escape Ataka. Yes. Comics. Tinkle, Batman, etc. Okay. As a teacher is concerned, all of us should be familiar with stories from Fables of Aesop, Panchatantra tales, Jataka tales, Tenali Raman tales, Akbar and Birbal stories, stories from Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bible and Quran. We should be familiar with some stories from each of these items so that we can use them in our classrooms, maybe for a set induction phase, maybe for a conclusion phase, or any phase in any subject. Irrespective of the subject, a teacher can utilize these things. We should also read these books. Just have a quick look at this silently. This helps us to have a lot of positive perspectives on classroom management. Yeah. And this is a small excerpt from the book Uncle Tungsten by Oliver Snacks. Can anyone read it and see whether you can visually? We have. I hope you remember. I told you will have a visual effect when we read. Can anyone read it and see whether you have a visual effect? Can you visualize what you're reading? Yeah. Can anyone try this? Who will read?
Okay, ma'am, I will read.
Yeah.
An excerpt from Uncle Tungsten, Oliver Sacks. Many of my childhood memories are of metals. These seem to exert a power on me from the start. They stood out, conspicuous against the heterogeneousness of the world, by their shining, gleaming quality, their silveriness, their smoothness and weight. They seemed cool to the touch, and they rang when they were struck. I loved the yellowness, the heaviness of gold. My mother would take the wedding ring from her finger and let me handle it for a while, as she told me of its inviolacy, how it never tarnished. Feel how heavy it is, she would add. It's even heavier than lead. I knew that I knew what lead was, for I had handled the heavy, soft piping the plumber had left one year. Gold was soft too, my mother told me, so it was usually combined with another metal to make it harder. It was the same with copper. People mixed it with tin to produce bronze. Bronze, the very word was like a trumpet to me, for battle was a brave clash of bronze upon bronze, bronze spears on bronze shields, the great shield of Achilles. Or you could alloy copper with zinc, my mother said, to produce brass.
Okay. Imagine how many of you could visualize it. Could you visualize a gold ring? Could you visualize the hands of your mother? Could you visualize something which is lead? Could you visualize something which is bronze? At least there will be some memories connected to what you have seen what you have read, right? This is visual reading. Now, let's see some reading activities which we can do in online as well. We can share a book on a screen or a projector and read silently in online classes as well as in offline classes. We can read a book, share the summary and read excerpts like we have just done now. We can organize reading competitions. We can read a story, discuss and prepare a new ending. If it has got a sad ending, can we make it into a happy ending? We can think of it. Okay. Now, one more story for you. Come on. Could you please read it? This is from Tenali Raman Stories. Yeah. Who will read next?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Raman salutation to the donkeys. The royal teacher Tadacharya belonged to Vaishnavita sect and
Vaishnavite sect. Shaiva sect and Vaishnavite sect.
Vaishnavite sect and worshipped Vishnu. He
Disregarded.
disregarded regarded Smarthas who were followers of Sri Adi Shankaracharya.
Yeah.
Since he looked down on the Smarthas, Tathacharya always covered his face with a cloth while going out so that he may not have to see the face of any Smartha. Everyone, including the king, was angry because of his behavior. So the people and the king himself requested Tenali to solve the problem. So after listening to everyone, Tenali went to Tathacharya's house to pay him a visit. As soon as he saw Tenali, he covered his face. Seeing this, Tenali asked him why he was covering his face in front of his disciple. Tatacharya told him that Smartas were sinners, and if he saw their face, he would be a donkey in his next birth. Hearing this, Tenali found a way to teach Tatacharya a lesson. After a few days, Tenali had accompanied the king, Tatacharya, and all the courtiers for a picnic. When they were returning, he saw some donkeys on the way. On seeing them, he rushed towards the donkeys and he bent down to salute them. Everyone, including the king, was shocked to see that. The king asked Tenali what made him to do so. Tenali told the king that he was paying his respect to Tatacharya's ancestors and forefathers who had become donkeys after having sinned by looking at the face of Smartas. The king understood Tenali's humor, and Tatacharya was ashamed of himself. Tatacharya never covered his face from then on.
Okay. How many of you have imagined donkeys, visualized Tenali Raman prostrating in front of donkeys? And how many donkeys have you imagined? 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you write the number over here? Let me see your visual impact. Okay, 7. Many donkeys, an array of donkeys. Excellent. Okay, so what's the moral from this story? What's the moral from this story? Yes. This story is a perfect example of the caste discrimination, the injustice which prevailed or which is still prevailing in our society. So we should never judge people based on their caste or religion. That is the moral of the story. Yeah. So now before we wind up, we are going to wind up. Before we wind up, let's wind up with a game. One more game. We have learned that lots of idioms and phrases are there from literature in front of us. I'm going to give you some. Can you give me some idioms from Shakespeare? Some popular idioms and phrases from Shakespeare. Can anyone give me? Do you remember?
To be or not to be, that's a question.
Yeah, to be or not to be, that's a question. Very good. Yes.
Life is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and truly signifying nothing.
Okay. Excellent, Jojo sir. Yes. And when someone is jealous, we call them something. When you describe someone, what do we call them? He or she is a green-eyed monster. That usage is from Shakespeare. Okay. What do you mean by I'm in a pickle? I'm in a pickle. Again, another usage from Shakespeare. I'm in a pickle. Any guesses?
Salt.
Pardon?
Salt.
I'm in a. When you're in salt, do you feel comfortable? Are you comfortable?
For being in trouble.
Yes, excellent. In a difficult or uncomfortable situation. The world is your oyster. Come, read the books and make use of it. What do you mean by that? The world is your oyster. Take advantage of the opportunities we get. Catch a cold. Catch a cold. Become sick. It's all Greek to me. Sometimes when we read something or when you listen to something and we say, it's all Greek to me.
I don't understand a bit.
Yeah, it's indistinguishable or ununderstandable. Love is blind. It's from the famous play, The Merchant of Venice. I don't need to explain it for you. And what do you mean by a wild goose chase? Sometimes doing research is like a wild goose chase. Haven't you felt so? Haven't you felt so? There are times when you feel that your research is going to be a wild goose chase.
Never ending.
Yeah, it's a hopeless and never ending pursuit. But we'll make sure that the goose is caught. Okay. Yeah. So, who has a heart of gold? A heart of gold.
Kind heart.
Yeah, excellent. And let's break the ice. We have an ice breaking sessions when the new class begins, right? What do you mean by breaking the ice? To start the conversation. Yeah. Don't be a laughing stock. Yeah, Tara. Don't be a laughing stock. A person subjected to ridicule or humiliation. Wear your heart on your sleeve.
Be kind to everyone.
Be kind to everyone. To express your emotions openly. Okay. Dogs of war. The soldiers or the brutalities that accompany war. The usage. And method to his madness. Means someone's strange behavior has got a purpose. So let's make sure that we read to know, we read to express, and we read to reflect. And as a result of good reading, we can speak confidently. We can speak to inspire, we can speak to impress, and we can speak definitely to influence others. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. Participants, it's a deliberation time. Please get in.
Dr. Asha ma'am, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
As usual, it was an exceptional session and it's worth hearing again and again. Content rich, truly. Plenty of usages, structures, thoughts, idioms, plenty of ideas you have shared. Thank you very much. We are really privileged to be present here in this conference. Thank you for supporting the insight in the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving the opportunity again and again. I haven't seen Vincy ma'am and Tara ma'am. Every time I'm only seeing their profile. Is it okay I get a chance to see them once? Even when I'm a participant, I'm not able to see them at all. And Akanksha Prajapati, a name which I'm fancied about.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, Akanksha, I do remember seeing you now. You have been a resource person for Insight in Depth, right?
Once, yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah. I remember seeing you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful webinar.
Thank you.
We thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah. Tara ma'am. So then, shall we wind up, sir?
Joju, sir.
Yeah, Bandekar was also thanking you, but there is range problem, and all of us are in the college, Dr. Asha, in connection with NCT visit and everything.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you very much once again. So, dear research scholars, move towards the conclusion part, please.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Gratitude empowers happiness. Let us be grateful for the wonderful session we were with Dr. Asha ma'am. Let me have on the line Priya UV ma'am for the vote of thanks. Priya ma'am?
Yes. Tara ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. The deepest craving of human nature is the need to be appreciated. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. Yes. Onset of this occasion, my destined duty is to extend my sincere thanks towards those people who has been the part of this program. Initially, I expose my extreme gratitude wholeheartedly to our resource person, Dr. Asha K, for making and exploring us the magic of letters. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, and making our day. My sincere gratitude for our principal, Dr. K.V. Benedict sir, for his immense support and unending motivation for we researchers. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I heartfully thank our research coordinator, Dr. Bindu B. ma'am, for being a continuing backup for our whole research wing. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your support. My vote of gratitude towards all research supervisors, teachers, students, and scholars for who have joined us today. Thank you, all of us, for your patience and cooperation. And I would like to thank all the gearing forces behind the success of this section. So, once again, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya ma'am. Thank you, Asha ma'am, for sharing this much infos with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Participants, please fill in the feedback forms. You will be receiving the e-certificates to your notified Gmail. And Sanila ma'am, the national anthem, please.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, Sanila ma'am. Participants, do fill in the feedback forms.
Thank you.